Alrighty, what's going on, Macro Perspective peeps? Marcos and I back with another great episode. I want to introduce our guest today, Leigh-Ann Webster. She's got a bit of a dossier here, but I will give you guys this. She's the founder of 52 Health Weeks, a community-minded program that's helping people with their health and well-being. She's also been part of the board chair of the YMCA at, San Diego, California. But for us, Marcos, how we're in touch with her, because between 2015 to 2024, she was the executive director of the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching, the NBHWC, which Marcos and I spent 18 months, almost 2 years, to get our board licensure. And basically, she's helped certify about 12,000 plus people in this field. And what she's doing today, talking about health and wellness, not just for professionals like us, but others like veterans, and just continuing this conversation, I really think just speaks to kind of like what the field is looking at, what's going on, and why health and wellness needs to penetrate certain markets and why it needs to be helpful. So, Leigh-Ann, we really appreciate you being here. I know your time is important, and I know how busy you are and what you've done for this field. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited, and I'm glad we were able to finally make it happen. I know we both had busy summers. I think mine was really busy, and I'm just glad to be here now. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with both of you.
Yeah, same. Thanks for being patient and understanding. I think we may have had some conflicts on our end clinically as well. So nice we were able to get this all squared away. Yeah, thanks for just, I guess, serving as an executive for, something that's like kind of new, up and coming. And you probably would appreciate this. I have somebody that we're kind of creating this like kind of independent healthcare system here in the Vegas Valley. And
That's
she
great.
does a lot of things with like coding and, providing just like a different type of like kind of platform related to that. And she's like, "What is it that you do?" Funny enough, Seamus, I don't know if I told you this story. So I'm a part of a business networking group here in Las Vegas, a BNI chapter. And one of the individuals, she does massages, right? So she is like partnered with this person to try to help with like, wound care and other things and massage healing and lymphatic training, etc. And she kept on talking about this individual. Her name is Rita. And Rita ended up being was actually a client of my wife. So I get this call. I'm just like, yeah, your wife is my hairstylist. I was like, and she started talking about all this stuff, Seamus, that was related to that this other person in my chapter was talking about. And I was like, why does this person sound like the same person? Fun fact, it was. And so it was like a small world. My wife does her hair. She's also working with another person in my chapter. That's how small Vegas is, mind you. And she was talking about like, what is it that like, coding for, health coaching, what does that look like? And I kind of was like, she's like, into like all those, the codes for, insurance purposes and whatnot. She's like, "Oh, this is fascinating. I didn't even know any of these things existed." And she's been in the industry for like 30 years. So she was like, "Oh, this would be an amazing arm to add to what it is we're trying to offer, as we get into these new potential like sections and sectors and as we're starting to kind of like do more with like the value health system that they're creating." And I was like, okay, cool. Like, these things are still new to people, even if they've been coding stuff for, 20, 30 years. And I think that's kind of like what, really excited myself and Seamus was like, not that we wanted to like, quote, take insurance as like part of what we would offer people, but having that opportunity in the future might be something that we can tap into to kind of give coaching, billable hours, quote unquote, for services for people and actually maximize utilization of their insurance provider. So, I think obviously it's probably taking a lot of time to get it to that place over the 10 years that you were doing it, because I'm sure, I mean, the codes actually do exist now. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, correct? Like for health coaching?
So there's category 3 CPT codes that exist, and those codes are generally not reimbursable. However, there are other codes that do exist that are reimbursable, like chronic care management codes. And it depends on the health system and it depends on the physician as to whether or not those codes are being used. But I have heard of physicians that are using the codes, and I think continuing to move in that direction, not just with the American Medical Association, but also with CMS, legitimizes the field, right? So whether or not someone ends up using the codes or not, it shows that, hey, you know what? Health and wellness coaches have a seat at the table in healthcare, and they are very much a valuable piece of the entire system to help people live healthier lives, right? Because one of the things we know is that with physicians, they're busy and they don't have a lot of time to talk to patients, right? And it's not just a negative on the patient side, but it's also, I've talked to a ton of physicians who are incredibly bothered by the fact that they don't have more time to sit with their patients. So it's definitely a two-way street. It's the way the system is. There are tons of wonderful physicians out there who would love to spend more time with their patients, but they're unable to. And so I think if we can get to a place where we have a system, a healthcare system, where there is a warm handoff from a physician to a qualified board certified health and wellness coach, and that person then works with the patient, we have a much healthier system in general and a healthier population.
100%.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel that the health coach, like if you look at the client or the patient or the member in that center, the physician's the captain. Maybe you've got like a nurse practitioner, dietitian, other clinical teams and stuff like that. I feel like we've been plugging in the health coach in there quite often.
Absolutely.
And I think why plugging them in is important is not that they're going to play physician's hat. They're not going to play dietitian's hat. What they're doing is they're a coach. And I feel that you have more experience this Leigh-Ann, but like part of that is the conversation where when a patient comes in, they might have some anxiety around the prescriptive hat of a physician because they only got 7 to 15 minutes in most
Exactly.
cases. But the health coach might have 20, might have 30, might have more time, and they might have more frequency of time. Physicians, maybe it's quarterly, annually. Maybe with the health coach, they have more time to do it bi-weekly. Have you noticed that people are more adherent to the prescriptive plans that, physicians or clinical teams have put on? Because when they have a health coach in mind, maybe there's a little bit more rapport, a little bit more trust, and maybe just guidance at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, really what you're talking about is the evidence base, right? It's really the evidence base that coaching works. And so if you look at the compendium of health and wellness coaching literature, which is open access, everybody can Google it and find it online, you see that the evidence shows that yes, patients are more likely to succeed with their health. There's more adherence to either their prescriptions or whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. So the evidence definitely is there to support the fact that health and wellness coaching works in the healthcare system. And I also think, like, evidence aside, just based on the people that I've connected with who have worked with a health and wellness coach, if they get a board certified coach, somebody who truly understands behavior change and what coaching is, they are incredibly satisfied and often more than willing to continue that relationship because they notice such a marked improvement in their own health.
There it is, right, Marcos? Keeping people in check, but also like a healthy check,
Yeah, coaching, I feel like health coaching can sometimes be more complicated than generalized coaching. You can kind of help distinguish to people listening, like what the difference of just like general coaching and health coaching, like the unique differences are.
Sure. Well, if you look at the content outline for health and wellness coaching, you'll see that in that and for anyone who's not familiar with what I'm talking about, the content outline is a document that was developed. It's really the knowledge, tasks, and skills that a person should have if they're practicing it as a health and wellness coach. And so if you look at that and say you compare it, MBHWC's version with ICF, right? So ICF, the International Coaching Federation, wonderful organization, but it was developed for the field of coaching, whereas MBHWC was developed for health and wellness coaching. If you lay those competencies side by side, you will see a lot of overlap. But one of the things that's notably different is the health and wellness information, the lifestyle information that's included in the competencies and then that the coach needs to know, right? So information about chronic disease management, high, blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, stress, sleep, just the pillars of lifestyle medicine, all is knowledge that health and wellness coaches have. And in many cases, what I've seen is that the health and wellness coach will often stack their credentials, right? So they may be coming in as a dietitian or as a nutritionist or as a personal trainer or even as a physician's assistant or a physician themselves, right? So I've seen all different people come through and want to become health and wellness coaches, sometimes with prior knowledge of health and wellness and sometimes not. But if you really want to like dig deep, I say take a look at the MBHWC competencies and really pay attention to those that relate to lifestyle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Beautiful.
Marcos and I know yeah, it's beautiful. Marcos and I know all about the alphabet soup, right, Marcos?
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, I try not to put too, I'm trying to like make mine very concise to like tell people what it is I do these days because it's like still kind of convoluted. They're like what is health and wellness coaching? And like, if I'm in a room with 50 people, which I am usually on a weekly basis, and I'm describing it like, in an elevator pitch, it's like I really am a nutrition heavy health and wellness coach because my upbringing and my credentials previously are more nutrition led. So
Right,
I'm going after the health and wellness based off of like food decisions and the struggles that are typically related to that, and obviously I'll pass it off to, the necessary people if it is a, true like eating disorder, right? Because it's
right,
not in my scope, right, to deal with like that type of care. But for a lot of individuals, like I want to live a healthier lifestyle. What does that mean? It's like I'm really trying to break the mold of like healthy is really whatever it is that you can define it as and making the proper decisions. Like if I were to sit here and give you multiple different plates of food, you would probably distinguish like I probably should be eating more of this stuff, but I tend to eat more of this, right? And they like typically hire me of like, what do I need to do to like have like core competencies to make sure I choose 80% more of like the quote healthy plate of food or things that help me with like, staving off chronic disease or, compositional change or performance relating to sport, right? Like, and again, like trying to do that in usually 20 seconds, right? Like to like make it short, sweet to the point of who it is I work with, right? Is definitely like, again, more nutrition heavy and health and wellness, not just, again, like people that are like, oh, I'm really looking to, I mean, some of the tactics we described are like our PN level 2 Seamus, where it's like, you could like literally create a physical barrier and boundary to like your food and lock it up and like only eat it during certain times. Like, yo, like I don't know if that would ever be something that I would personally recommend. Like, I
right,
don't want
right,
people to ever think things are off the table, but like, how do you, what is the ramification if that inclusion exists, right? Like, you want to have a sandwich, right? Like, how do those pillars stack up and what are the actual like components of that? And like, I like going into that like level of detail because I think it can help, like, always help people decipher and decide better decisions for them personally. And then we can get into the nitty gritty of like macronutrients and nutrition timing and like more like the athlete specific people I do work with. It's like an
right,
interesting like lens and hat to be like, hey, board certified health coach, but like really most of the people I tend to work with outside of like the clinical setting is more people that are like into CrossFit or into like a performance based type of modality of fitness. And so like we're trying to improve that. And honestly, I feel like that their relationship with like food and their overall health tends to be better because they're striving to like get more out of their personal system, aka their body.
right, right. Yeah, and it sounds like you're working with people who are coming to the table already passionate about their fitness, right? They're already identifying as someone who's athletic or athletes, and they want to sharpen things up.
Well, that's the kind of the trope there, right? Like I think a lot of people think of like CrossFit athlete and they think, well, they have the athlete designation, but everybody that does CrossFit would consider themselves a CrossFit athlete
True.
because it's like,
Yep.
and I think, when I'm going into work with people specifically at gyms, like, the model I'm kind of playing with right now is like I want to reach a lot of people and give them so much value in a short period of time that they can hopefully go apply it on their own. So mine,
Right.
a lot of times it's like a group coaching setting in these like little challenge formats of like interweaving intricacies of things that will stack up for their wins long term, but they haven't really paid much attention to it because they've been maybe too overly focused on getting into the gym. They forget that they have 18 hours outside of the gym that they need to focus on decisions
Yes.
that are going to lead them in the right direction for their body composition and their overall health, right?
Yep.
So again, like I'm playing with a bunch of different things all the time. And as we talked about on the show quite a bit, ad nauseum is like my passion really lies with kids
Awesome.
because I actually had started a 501(c)(3), which I've actually decided not to continue with because of just like time commitments. And it doesn't stop me from the mission of going and helping kids. It's just that
Totally. Yeah.
I don't need the entity. It's just costing me money, and I'm not really good at fundraising quite yet. Maybe I can do it again. Just cost some lawyer fees and document fees, whatever. And getting into deal with like student athletes or just students in general, sport is a great vessel to start talking about these things, because maybe those kids do care a little bit more. But like I'm like, ultimately, I really don't care that you guys want to go play at the next level at college or try to go professional. I'm here to talk about like how this relates, how the food decisions now relate to that, but also how you then need to carry it through with life.
Yes.
Because oftentimes you get into these higher level programs, they just do it all for you. I just did what I was told. I was being coachable, right? I was just doing what they said to do, instead of also asking the question of like, well, why am I doing this? Right. And
Yeah,
if we can
for
answer that
sure.
why, in addition to them doing it, then they'll be, oh, wow, like there was the value. And it's why certain programs in the Vegas Valley are exponentially better than other programs when it comes to particular sports.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also, just kind of tagging on to what you're saying, a lot of times I like to ask people, well, how are you feeling? Like, what is your energy like? How do you feel when you do whatever it is you're doing? And then they kind of go, huh, I don't feel that great. Well, my energy isn't as high as it could be. And then, like, I often feel like that's a really great starting point to a conversation about, yeah, maybe your numbers all look good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're thinking that the 30 to 60-minute walk you're doing a day is enough, but like, how do you feel? Would you really help people just stop and reflect and think about it, whether they're a student athlete or someone who's 70 years old? Just taking that time to go, let me assess that. Well, I could feel better. And I think that that's often a motivator for people to stop and say, yeah, let me consider talking to a health coach.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. I think that's a great question, right? What I found about this question though, Leigh-Ann, maybe I'm gonna push up on it a little bit, is some people have normalized crappy feeling. Like
Percent.
they've
Yes.
normalized like this is just
Yes.
how I'm supposed to operate, right? And it's sometimes I feel like they're tuning forks within themselves, or like their sensitivities, or like they just don't know what it actually
Yes.
feels like to be like, oh, this is normal, but like they're down here and they've normalized this, and it's like they get a taste of normal and they're like, oh my God, I feel a million times better. It's like, dude, you're just coming to normal. Imagine when you optimize wellness a little bit more. So it's kind of interesting, that question. It opens up. You're right. It opens up so much for the client.
Well, it's really about self-reflection. If you can just take a step back and self-reflect and then see, well, what have you normalized? And is that really what you want? And
Yeah.
I think when people stop and think about that, they often say, well, no, that's not. Like, you
Yeah.
don't just say, well, that's life. You just,
Well, that's what Marcos has been doing, right? Marcos kind of like, we don't call it reflection. I mean, it is, but it's like the audit, right? Marcos, the whole,
yes,
let's take an audit.
Mhm. It
yes,
is. Yeah, I stole it from another dude in my group. He does energy audits for houses, how to like be more efficient with your energy and saving money based off of like things you could fix in your house. So I do the same thing. I do energy audits with nutrition and fitness, right?
love
Like,
that.
because ultimately, if we're, and I ask those like kind of deeper rooted questions. Okay, like, the question of like on my questionnaire, it's like career and how long have you been there, right? Like they're like, well, why would you ask that? Like, what am I doing? Why is that even relevant to like, medical information? I'm like, well, if you've been there for 10 years and this is the body you've produced, I got a lot of work to do, right? We're going to have to audit your environment. We're going to have to like look at things that you can likely, get into there, because you've made a very comfortable version of yourself that we're going to be a little uncomfortable with. And, I tell them, I was like, hey, like I could literally list you out all the things that you can buy right now that can help maximize this, but, maybe you need to kind of like piece it together step by step, bit by bit, so it's going to make the most sense to you. And I'm going to shine my light on all these different, stones for you to step on. Let's start picking one at a time and, see what kind of happens there. For the energy audit, like again, I tell people, pull out your phone. And I get this every time. I swear it's every time. I don't have my phone on me all the time. I was like, look, for all intents and purposes, I don't believe you. Like, because everybody has their phone on them at all times, right? Like you need to, you need to exist. It's a digital world, right? Like even my trade people, like, trust me, like it's on them because they need to make a call to whatever thing, blah, 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 blah. Right. They're like, well, it didn't get my workout stuff. I was like, okay, you're missing the point here. I don't care about what happened in the gym or the steps that may have been missed. I want to know what goes on inside of it.
Right,
And
right.
it like opens up their mind thinking about like, oh, he's really not even focused on how much I'm burning there. Why? And like, I think it opens up people into like, oh, he really is like getting into like the deeper rooted issues here. And it usually starts with that kind of energy audit and environment audit. Again, like it's a very rudimentary audit, because it's like, do you sit in front of a desk? Does it stand? Does it sit? Right? Do you have a walking path? Do you have the ability to take walks? What do these things look like? When do you wake and sleep? All things that are related to like maximizing the outcome that I think is very realistic long term. Because I mean, I'd be willing to bet if I could say that people had about 120 to 180 minutes of activity every day, including fitness, right? So somewhere in that range, you're going to stave off a lot of these very chronic illnesses, because
Mm-hmm.
you've put in, effort to like just move and feel good about that movement, the creative, reasoning and all the studies that are related there about like creative thinking, right? Kind of, I always try to like cherry pick that, especially for like my more creative individuals. And I'm really just trying to like, I'm like, hey, the reason you're hiring me is because you don't have time to listen to all these podcasts relating to like all the next level, like quote, health things. But I'm here to sift through the noise and just be your filter and tell you like, here's what it all like amounts to. And here's how we can apply it for you right now.
Yeah. I love all of that. Energy audit is a great way to get people to think about what they're doing every day, not just in certain moments throughout the day.
Yeah. And I take it one step further. I tell people, you're not really like, while you are the sum of your daily actions, it's better to look at it from a week perspective, because winning a week can have some days that were, not as ideal, right? You can look at this bigger picture of how much went on in the 7 day span and create averages of things. And I think it kind of lets you relax a little bit more into it versus feeling overly pressured. And I'm actually noticing this. Like my wife called me right before we hopped on this. She's like, our son is like feeling an immense amount of pressure as a second grader. I'm like, I get it, because he's me. I was the same way. I cared way too much early on. And she's like, well, how do we like, make him seem like, we care, but like we don't care that much with like, the
Right.
grades right now, right? And I'm like, look, like I don't have the answer. I just know how I felt in that moment. And I wanted to like, show up to my parents and tell them, look at the good job that I did.
Yes.
And I think this was actually another moment of self-reflection. Like me as the parent, I got to remind my son, like, I got to do this little dirty work of like homework with you every day. So now it's like I got second grade homework as a 32-year-old male with my, 7-year-old. And you know what? Yesterday, like he was, writing and bitching and moaning and groaning
Oh
about,
yeah, for
doing all
sure.
these things. And I was like, look, like, so you can have more of that free time and play. There's little things that you need to do, like your work for me. And I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to sit here. I want you to read this to me. We're going to get better at it together, just like we do with soccer. So I like that call happened with my wife, but I'm realizing there's these like little things that we need to do collectively so that he's not feeling pressure. Cause I'm like, dude, like if you go in there and you can tell me you're giving your absolute best, like effort, and you get a B, I will not care. But when you're just sitting around and wanting to play your iPad and you're not working at these things on your own, right? Like, of course, you're going to feel some type of way. So the way he's actually feeling, I can relate to, is because he's feeling pressured because he's not prepared. So now it's like back on us to prepare him so that he doesn't feel pressured.
Right. I relate. Hey, you know what? And by the way, it doesn't really stop. It just changes. I have a 20-year-old who's a junior in college. And I will say this, though. I don't miss sitting and doing math homework in the
I love it.
elementary. Yeah, I found like, I was like, what?
Everybody says that math has changed, but Leigh-Ann, my background is actually in mathematics. So like,
Oh, good.
like
Okay.
seeing these, we did the math homework yesterday, and I was like, how is he going about conceptualizing? They're dealing with things in a more kind of concrete versus abstract way with like
Right.
number sense and
Right.
regrouping right now. And I was like, okay, I get it. And how is his brain processing it? Like the teacher stapled the page backwards, so there weren't instructions. And I kind of knew that. So I was just like, all right, like, why is it starting at number 5, not number 1? And he went about it, he circled it and like drew an arrow and did all this stuff. And I was like, went to the next page, like, oh dude, look at, you didn't do it exactly like they described, but like you created a way that made sense. You were grouping tens, like perfect. But I think if he would have seen the instructions firsthand before me letting him just like do some investigating on his own, it was kind of a cool thing. But again, like I don't mind doing the math homework. My wife would be like, this is all you, dad. And I also am not like never really been a huge reader. I like listening to things more than reading. I was like, all right, cool. Like 15, 20, I got 20 minutes. I can give him that time of day to, like
Absolutely. Yep.
listen to
Yep.
him, and
I
hopefully
gave my
we could.
husband, I gave my husband the math. I took all the writing and the English, and I was the strategizer, and I'm still the strategizer. And I love when he calls me. Even he called me last week, and he said he's in a fraternity, and he said he's creating a mom's club, and he wanted to talk about, his plans for parents weekend and strategize, like what food are we going to have and what are we going to do and where should I go shopping and what gifts should I get. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm so happy that my child is calling me to like have this adult discussion about strategizing for these parents that are coming in from all over the country. So every stage is different.
I feel like every quarter is different. Seamus
Yeah.
isn't there yet because he hasn't had
Um,
kids, but in quick, Seamus and I recorded an episode earlier this morning, and then I normally call him, but he was busy. So I was talking with another buddy that just has a 4 month old, and he's talking about like we're not sleeping, and I was like, I was like, I was like, wait, give it 2 more months, it'll change once again,
Yep.
and it was just like funny because he didn't understand that perspective when we were training during COVID, like in his garage. He's like, I don't get it. Why do we have to work out so early? I was like, I don't got time otherwise, bro. Like this is all I got. Like,
Right.
these kids
Right.
are taking priority right now. So it's always so fun and fascinating to, just deal with these things and like watch the growth and maturity of like a kid, like you said, and like even a
Totally.
20-year-old asking you those things, and it doesn't ever end. And I know that like thing of pressure because my wife's like, what did you do? I was like, well, he's pressuring himself. I pressured myself to a level that was probably unhealthy at a young age. I made a goal at the age, I got like a B in third grade. And other than that, I didn't have a B up until my technically sophomore year of college. And it wasn't even a B, it was an A minus, but it was the most relieving experience ever
Good.
because I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter that much. I don't need to be perfect. But the sooner I can have my son, maybe I make him be A B honor roll intentionally because he's like more about like working hard and not about like the mark as much as like doing things consistently to build a healthy habit, right? Because
Right.
I was a procrastinator and I just got by, and then I would cram and study and do these things, which have not led to healthy behaviors. That's shame, as I felt totally unprepared for the MBHWC exam.
Oh, did you really?
yet, let me tell you the story, Leanne. I studied the way my mind works is like I need to do a little bit every single day. I wasn't doing a little bit every single day. I was doing a lot every single day, just because that's how I prep for things. A chapter here, what questions in the evening, something like that, right? And I'm like 8 weeks out to the exam. I'm like going hard. Marcus is like, cool, you got the study guide? I'm like, yeah, here you go. This is like maybe a week out, Marcos, correct me if I'm wrong. And he's like, boom, 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 boom. He takes the exam. And then I take the exam the day before him. I'm like, dude, yeah, that thing was tough. Like, I got this grade. I think it was like an 86 or something like that. He goes, yeah, let's see it. He goes, yeah, it was okay. I think he gets like a 92 or 94. And I'm like over here, like, dang, bro, Marcos is just really good at like either information gathering or studying. But like in 1 week compared to my 8, I was like, I'm a mere mortal compared to this man.
Well, you just like to drag it out. And if you're like Marcos and I, we don't want to drag it out. We're like, I'll be all in for a week. And
Yeah.
that's all I'll do. And then
Yeah.
I'll take it and
I've
move
But I
on.
felt,
never been that way. I'm like I'm a constant, like I'm one of those preparers. Like I have to be, it's a Batman meme. It's like Batman has to be prepared. Like Batman prepared. Like he just has everything about the person. He's a true detective about it all. That's just how I've been. Because I feel like talking about pressure, I get some pressure about testing if I don't phase it out. Just because I know how life gets so busy,
Mm-hmm.
and just Marcos and I and our projects and our work, that I'm like, I'd rather just have a little bit every single day for me, just because it helps me out.
I think it's
yeah.
healthier that way.
Yes, and I felt like I should get to this, I should get to this, I should get to this. And,
Uh-huh.
it was all those things, and then there was like work travel and all that stuff. And the Seamus is like, "Have you been like preparing?" I was like, "I'll get to it eventually," and then eventually came, and I'm like, "I like, do I pay for this exam?" I was like, "No, I'm too cheap. I'm not paying $50 for the little practice exam," which probably would have helped me just like relieve some confidence. But getting into it, I was like, Seamus come out, he's like, "I got an A, no problem," and I'm like, great. And I got into it, I was like, dude, that was probably the hardest thing I think I've ever taken mentally because,
Yeah.
you know, in coaching and like these two feel pretty like again, like I had to put like different hats on, like, all right, am I gonna go with like this kind of bias with every way of answering this question on this go around in case I have to retake it? And I did. Luckily it steered me right. And that was like again part of the other courses we took in leading up to it. So I was like, well, thank God they kind of mentioned that, and that was in the back of my mind. All the stuff that was like most people probably fail because of the clinical relevance and understanding all those different like data points, but we do it every day. So I was like, easy. Like I don't need to study these like, BMI standards and all that stuff. Like I don't remember like the exact numbers all the time, but I looked at the table, like, okay, cool. Like boom, 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 boom. But, meanwhile, all the other people also, dude, the coaching part was the hardest part, where I think everybody
Right.
else was like, coaching was easy, but the ethics and the actual, like, health management stuff was like things that are harder for them because they're not in it every
Yeah.
day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Totally.
Coaching
Yeah.
coaching is hard, right, Leanne? Because it's like Prochaska's work, like trans theoretical model of change. Like it's like we were talking about this before Marcos came on. It's just like it's not psychoanalyzing people. That's not what we're doing. We're talking about change psychology, coaching psychology, not from a diagnostics DSM-5 kind of concept. We're talking like a general normal person wanting to make a change, right? Whether it be their health, primarily their health, like fitness, nutrition, sleep, stress management, things we talk about. But the problem is people know what they need to do.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
why are we having this conversation? Sometimes that kind of bias comes up, right? As a coach, where you're like, why are we having this conversation? Because it's like, you know what to do. They know what to do. This is where they're at. They know what to do. But in between there is something that is just stopping them, right?
Yeah.
And can you kind of talk about that kind of like Prochaska, the TTM, like kind of just like, what is that thing that's limiting so many people, even though we know what to do?
Well, I mean, I just think we live in this incredibly busy world. And I think that what gets in the way is, and this is more my thoughts around it, right? But people don't like to feel uncomfortable. So one of
Mhm.
the things I often tell people is you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Like, sorry, but it's true. And you have to figure out like time management. I mean, I feel like that's a huge thing that gets in the way from where you are to where you want to be is just time management. Just putting it on your calendar and making it a priority and placing value on it, right? Like that's huge. And also, and Marcos, you mentioned this at the beginning. I think it was you who said, like, what time of the day works for you, right? Like, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Some people have higher energy in the morning, some people in the evening. It just depends. But understanding yourself and understanding what will work for you. And then I think that the other thing really is what gets in the way is that people don't take the time to figure out what their intrinsic motivation is, right? So like why why are you doing this? I mean, are you doing it to look better in a pair of jeans? Like is that not going to go deep enough for you to get uncomfortable being uncomfortable and to make the changes that you want to make?
Could I interject here for a second, Leanne?
Absolutely.
Marcos and I talk about this a lot. And I think at some point, he and I feel like we've coached thousands of people. You've coached thousands of people. And they're just like, I just want to be healthier. I just want to smack someone in the side of the head. I'm like, but that doesn't mean anything, you know? Like, that, what does that mean? And I feel like healthier really has to be specific. And sometimes, and I know whatever your take is on this, is like, I think sometimes, like, first there is some getting away from pain points, right? Like what is that pain you're getting away from? Because that's a great pain is like a good pressure, like that we can if we interchange that word a little bit, like pain without putting a negative connotation on, it's like dude, that's a good motivator because it's like I don't want to be there. But when someone says healthier and they're not specific about it, I'm like, we need to do a better job. So I have to be like, can you be a little bit more specific about that? Like, yeah. So like, what has your big experience around like pain and like that concept of like just general like, oh, healthier?
Yeah. People don't like to experience pain. I mean, really, right? And that can be a motivator. But the problem is that a lot of time, I mean, it just depends too who you are, right? Because like your tolerance level is different. If you, I often talk about how if you do hard stuff, you can do hard stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so if you are used to having like some physical pain, breathing hard, right? Like you're sprinting down a track or you're climbing up a mountain. And that's just like painful sometimes. It's not the kind of pain like my hip is injured or my knee hurts, but it's like this does not feel good. But you kind of got to like dig deep and figure out why you're doing it and get past it enough to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that, right, Marcos?
Yeah, the intrinsic motivator thing is a weird one because, like you said, like the thing that motivates me doesn't necessarily motivate a lot of people that will coach throughout our career. Um, and I think the one of the biggest like eye-opening moments was when one of my now clients asked me the question as we were having like a sit down. goes like, how do you stay in it after seemingly you've had it like you have it all figured out and it's done? I'm like, at this point, it's just like an atomic habit. Like, I don't know how to function without it. And I know how good I feel with it, that like I'm unwilling to give up on that pursuit of trying to like get better, quote unquote, being uncomfortable. Like, I've I relish the moment at which like I find a movement in the gym that like, man, that was hard. Like I couldn't do it as heavy as I thought. And to me, it's like that becomes a motivator. I want to get good at this movement, even though it doesn't really matter for anything. Like there's no real function out of it outside of like it challenges me in that moment to do the hard thing. Overcoming it feels good. And he's like, that's an interesting way of putting it. He's like, I never thought
Dude,
of it that way. And I was like, you
dude,
know,
that reminds me so much of there's this movie, Leanne, I think you'd love it. It's called 180 Degrees South.
Oh,
It's a
I don't know that
documentary.
movie.
You know that one?
I
Yeah.
don't. No, I
Oh,
don't.
great movie. Yvonne Chouinard, founder of Patagonia. It's a documentary
Okay.
with him in it.
Okay, yeah.
They go to Patagonia, and this is Yvonne Chouinard, okay? This is the guy that's like all outdoorsy and all this. And they climb this mountain. It's like a week long thing in the documentary. They get to the top. This is what it was. And this is exactly what Marcos is talking about. It's like, so why do you do this? And he's like frustrated. He's like, we're doing nothing. We're climbing this hill that has absolutely like no function. Like there's no point in doing this. It's just a bunch of old guys going on this week long trek just to do this hard thing, to climb up and to climb back down. That is it. And that's what I took from the movie. Like 180 degrees south, literally from that movie, is like just doing the hard thing for just doing the hard things thing. It's not because I want to be a better father. It's not because I want to be a better son or a better coach or a better professional. It's just like I'm just doing this hard thing. And that was like the funniest line, hearing that from like this old guy who founded Patagonia. I was like,
It's
that's exactly what Marcus is talking about. It's just like
it
just doing
is
this hard
true.
thing.
True. I mean, so I swam today, and it was only the second time that I've swam in 1 year. I've done half Ironmans. I've done, triathlons, ocean swimming. But then, like, for some reason, I get in and out of the habit. And I don't even
mhm,
know why. Well, I know why. Because it's a pain. Because if you don't go at 6 a.m., well, if you go at 6 a.m., you have to share a lane. And
mm,
I'm not that fast. So then if you go in the middle of the day, you get your hair wet, you have to start your day over, right? And
mhm.
so that's like my reason. It's the dumbest thing ever. That's my reason why I don't go. But today I was like, you know what, you're going. And I went at 11 a.m. And when I was in the pool, I was just swimming along. And then like all of a sudden I was like, this is ridiculous. Like you're just like not even trying. And it's like this whole self-talk, right? And I mean, I was trying in that I was swimming back and forth and I was thinking this is hard. And then I was like, you know what? You're going to do 10 laps and like each 25 yards, you're going to go as fast as you can and then you can recover. And then like in the middle of it, I'm thinking, why am I even doing this? But then I was like, well, because it's hard and because it feels good to actually do something that's difficult. And at the end of it, though, I felt like incredible, like very rewarded by my own just ability to push myself doing something that I kind of wanted to be doing. Well, and then the other thing too is as I was in the pool, I was thinking, you're here, like you're in the water. So you're already like, you've already made the commitment. Here you are. So like, why aren't you giving this 100% effort? Because the time is going to be the same amount of time if you give it 100% or if you give it 50%. So like, what is your problem? So it is interesting how as coaches we can learn to coach ourselves, and it's stupid stuff, right? Like it's kind of like that movie. Like it's like I'm swimming back and forth. This is dumb, but no, it's not. So
The internal dialogue or monologue, I guess, of swimming is a unique one because there's generally no music unless you have that
yes,
underwater speaker, which I don't
there
know if
was
your
no
place has
music.
that.
No,
And you're literally left to your thoughts and your breath. And I feel like there's like really no other situation in life that is quite like swimming
there's
for
not.
extended period of time because you're just like you're focusing on your strokes and how your muscles are burning and how you're gliding through the water and your hand placement. If you're really like putting thought into it, even if you're not going fast. And it's like one of the things that people will say to me, like, I don't like swimming, it's boring. And I was like, I don't know if you think it's boring. I just think it's difficult because you're just left there like without any like interaction or stimulus other than what you're doing, you know?
Yes,
It's like
yes,
the most intentional form of exercise in today's world, whereas like go on a cycle class, you got like hyped up music, or you're going on a bike, you have
Right.
your headphones in, or you're going to the gym, you have your headphones in. So it's like I actually really relish those moments in swimming. And we didn't swim as much this year as last year because it didn't get quite as hot, where it was like the morning water felt like really refreshing. We would do it
Hmm.
like Mondays and Fridays during summer last year here in Vegas, and I really looked forward to it. And even like me and my training partner, we would do like maybe 100, 200 meters, maybe sit there and talk for like 5, 10 minutes. It was more of like active recovery,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like the coolness of the water, the little bit of cardio, some hard effort. Like, I mean, fitness is always better with a friend, but in those moments of intention, I'm like literally like, what is he thinking about right now as I'm doing this, like, this swim, as I'm thinking about like all those things I just mentioned. It was,
Right.
yeah, like I totally understand that struggle. And I'm not a good swimmer, but I like the fact that
Neither
I'm
am
not a good
I.
swimmer.
Yeah.
Well, you did a half Ironman or Ironman. Like, I
But you
mean,
can do that. That's like what I always tell people. You can do anything with
yeah,
not anything, but
you can. You,
a
you,
lot of
you put your mind
well,
to it.
yeah, maybe yeah. Like I don't know about Everest, right? Like but you could do a lot of physical things if you just train consistently. And I
Yeah.
think the word is consistency, right?
Hmm.
Whether that consistency takes place over 3 months or it could be a year of solid consistency, that's what will get you to whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
Totally.
think it's consistent. We had Dr. Kelly Starr on recently, and he said something recently about that, where it's like we don't think in times. Most humans don't think in times of like, maybe if we're ninjas, it's like 2 weeks on the calendar, and like, I know what I'm doing. But like, we don't think of like consistency of exercise, kind of like what Marcos was talking about in perpetuity of like, I've just been doing this for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Like, where's that data? Like, there's not many people that probably doing that consistently. But like, when you find those people, you look at them, right? And it's like, wow, you're 50 years old, your bones are strong. I love when I was working with Cinegenics and I was doing VO2 maxes on a 77-year-old whose VO2 max was better than mine and his
yeah.
empty max and all this. And obviously there's some, hormonal things. The guy's 77. Like, we're talking about like some, support from like a optimization standpoint. But like, I'm like, the 77-year-old could beat half the 30-year-olds I know. Like, come on. And because he was just so consistent, he didn't necessarily need to hoorah himself and beat his chest to like get after. He's just like, nah, I just wake up, I go do that thing, and he's just built up so much, kind of like a 401k, just built up so much good accumulation that it's like, look at the top of the mountain. It's like this hockey stick effect. Like people talk about success, it's like overnight. It's like, yeah, it's overnight because I did 50 years of it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's that I think we could harp on consistency a lot, but the end, I want to shift the conversation here if it's comfortable with you for this veteran talking to veterans program. I did not want to lower this in any side. I know that Marcos and I know many veterans. My brother's veteran, served in the Marines. We've had some coaches and I've had previous coaches that are veterans. I've worked with a lot of. I'm here in LA. I come down to San Diego and I go to Jocko's gym and did some jiu-jitsu there. And they got a bunch of Marines out there choking people out. But veterans, I feel like I didn't even think about this, but it's such an I feel like from the VA and just knowing some people, like it just seems like such an underserved community. Um, how is health coaching being served in that community, and how have you been looking at that?
Yeah, so great question. When I was with MBHWC, actually one of our partners that we worked with, we collaborated with very consistently was the VA.
Mhm.
And the VA actually has a whole health coaching program. So they have, it was well over 100 national board certified health and wellness coaches that work within the VA system with veterans. So I was definitely, had collaborated a lot with the VA during my time at MBHWC. But then when I left the board after about 6 months of doing whatever I wanted to, which was great, I had the opportunity to take on a contract position with this program called Veterans Talking to Veterans. And the program is Wyoming born, and now they are in Idaho, New Mexico, and Rhode Island, and quickly expanding. And veterans get to go to a health and wellness coach training program that's accredited by the MBHWC. The actual program is called Mentor Agility. And they go through that program and they go through it for free. They're run either through grants or through the Veterans Commission through the state. So, like in Wyoming, the Wyoming Veterans Commission sponsors these veterans to actually go through the accredited training program. And then in return, the veterans commit to volunteering for a year as a group health and wellness coach and leading group health and wellness coaching groups once a week in their communities. And they work not only with veterans, but also with first responders. And what they've found is that this approach within their community, with a real focus on storytelling and camaraderie and support, just support of each other, just the mere act of talking together, has really been able to shift the mindset, which can often be like post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth. And they're partnered with the University of South Florida to show the evidence base, and everything that's coming out of that study is showing that these veterans are really feeling that they have the ability to thrive again. They have the ability to connect again, not just within their communities, but also within their families. And it really acts, it is a suicide prevention program ultimately, right? And so I do the marketing and the publicity and the outreach and just try to get more awareness around the program. And then what I really like about this position, though, is I also work directly with some of the veterans who are trying to launch their coaching groups. And a lot of them have no business experience whatsoever. And so they really struggle to like get people within their community to be open-minded enough to come to the actual group. So I work with them to help them figure out how to do that, because a lot of this is happening in states that are very rural. Sometimes it's not about like putting things up on social media, but rather like putting a flyer up at the local church or the local laundromat or the VFW or the American Legion, right? So
Yeah.
it's a really grassroots effort, and it's just been really fun for me to work with all these people that I probably wouldn't necessarily be working with, but I just feel like I'm making a real difference, and they are too.
Yeah. First, I want to commemorate for you for that. I feel like that's such an undertaking that I just don't hear about. I mean, I know I hear about like veterans issues. I talk with some of our team members that have been veterans, my brother. Um, maybe they might get recommended to talk with a psychologist, but really like what's the adherence rate for that? What's this? It's just so, I don't know. I feel like it's so nice. I don't know the better word to say, but it's just so great to hear that someone is actually going out there, being grassroots, shaking hands, putting up posters, putting up flyers, trying to get community. I mean, this is what Marcos and I talk about all the time, right, Marcos? It's like, look, we are digitally based, but we're not digitally bound. Don't
I
just
love that.
don't just be like, let me post up. I'm working with veterans, and it's like expect 100 people to show up. No, get out there, go shake hands, say hi to people. You said you're a health coach, like go do that. And it's like it's so cool to see that you're actually making that impact, because like who else is going to do it, right? A lot of these folks might be already turned off by the VA or turned off by different medical providers or different experts, but you put this coaching hat on and you create a conversation, and it's like suicide prevention, mental health. Like maybe it is just sitting with someone, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it is
Right, right.
just being in, like the presence is there. Who knows how many lives you may have impacted just because you made a presence. And it's just different. Maybe it's just different approach. It's not social media. Maybe it is just really just these posters, flyers, and just talking to people. So I think that's really awesome. And yeah, like what's one of the big things that's going on with the veterans talking right now? Are you guys doing like an event or anything soon or anything like that?
So right now the big event doesn't happen until next August. So they do an annual event every year at the National Museum of Military Vehicles, which is in Du Bois, Wyoming. So it is like a very small town in the middle of nowhere, but has had some great investors. They would not even want to be called investors. They're community members now, people that have come and really said, hey, we want to make a difference. And so this man, his name is Dan Starks. Dan came to that area of Du Bois, and he built this National Museum of Military Vehicles. It's an absolutely beautiful, huge, informative, educational museum. So I went this year and I spoke at it last year, and when I was with MBHWC. So that's the annual event. But I'd say the for anyone listening, the biggest thing right now would be a call to action, that if you are a veteran that is in Idaho, Wyoming, New Mexico, or Rhode Island right now, that's where we currently have funding. Look up Veterans Talking to Veterans and apply. If you want to become a health and wellness coach, apply to do so. through that program, and it's free. It's
Wow.
it's yeah, one of the things that has been really neat for me is watching how when you have state leaders support a program, like take away all the bureaucracy, like just like let's just throw all that away, throw away the red tape, and just get like a state governor or a leader who says, you know what? Yeah, this is working. We are seeing a difference in our suicide rates. We are seeing a difference in someone's ability to thrive. Let's move this ahead. And I have been really quite shocked because, I live in California, so it is a very populated state, right? So we don't tend to move things as quickly in California. You know that too. You're in LA.
Sometimes some
However,
would say moving backwards.
yeah. However, in Nevada, I bet you can actually move the needle a little bit faster and further because it's not as populated. And that's like been one of the coolest things that I've found is that in Wyoming and Idaho in particular, just the amount of support at the community level, but also at the government level has like allowed us to like truly move mountains. And I mean, I'll work with veterans that they were in Vietnam, and they were in some cases have tried to commit suicide but didn't succeed, which is so wonderful that they didn't succeed, and now they have truly found like their calling, and they're so impassioned by it, and they just want to help other veterans. So yeah, so the call to action would be, if you are a veteran or you know of one, encourage them to take a look at this program, and if they want to become a health and wellness coach, think about applying. And then if you do attend this program and you want to get the board certification, it's covered by the GI Bill, which is amazing. So yeah, it's really cool.
We need to get this message out, right, Marcos?
Any opportunity to kind of help serve in a greater capacity, I feel like is always a great thing. And then obviously getting it covered. It's not a inexpensive feat to go about getting, board certified. I think all in for previous education leading up to it, plus then, the actual like cost of the exam itself. A couple $1,000s, right? Like to do a course and then into
at least.
Yeah. So
it depends. Some of these health and wellness coach training programs are thousands and thousands, and then there's some that have kept it under 5,000, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I guess I lucked out because I won a scholarship for the PN level 2, and then just took full advantage of it.
That's awesome. That's great.
Well, it was moments like this that made it possible, because Seamus and I wanted to practice public speaking and creating, content and video, and being able to stick out a little bit more than additional people that are trying to apply for certain things. And, they flew the like, hey, are you interested in this? I'm like, let me just go ahead and just try some of this stuff I've been working on over here with Seamus. It ended up, then I pulled him in with me. I was like, let's go do this together, dude. And
luckily, work funded it. Luckily, work funded my part.
Yes, this is true. Again, like finding opportunities, if you are passionate about that thing, like take full advantage of things that are existing in, current, like, grants and bills and things of that nature, because again, like you may not even understand that it's like a viable path for career and also to serve, like your greater community as well. And, again, like I said, like near and dear to my heart, kids, veterans. One of the facilities actually that I'm doing some of my challenges with is, they fund all their, like 50% of their memberships are through their nonprofit. So they do
really cool.
They do a fundraiser once a year that really helps supply. I feel like it's roughly, my God, I want to say probably most of their memberships for the year, 25 to 30 of them, pretty easily based on the donations that they get. Plus, then there's like a CrossFit event, in addition to it. So, again, like what he's been able to create with Brandon One CrossFit has been, nothing short of like amazing, because you have, disabled veterans that are coming in, have a place to work out, community. There's elements of the health and wellness coaching, things that I can kind of help provide and give back to in that like kind of challenge sense. And, ultimately, like, again, fitness, health, wellness for, really all these different kind of like, subgroups and niches really do make a world of a difference. And one of my clients right now, veteran, and, talks about certain things and using the VA and benefits and whatnot. And, he's been killing it, made a complete 180 in his life in 6 months.
That's
it's
great.
Absolutely astounding, and same thing, like my job as, this health and wellness coach and professional, he's like, the conversations we constantly have had, Leigh-Ann, has been, I've done this before. Like, why does this not feel hard? I was like, isn't that the whole point? Like, I wanted you to I don't want you to ever feel guilt about having a day where you've had a rack of ribs because it was your birthday with your dad
Right. Right.
and all those things. It's like the idea here is to get it and make it realistic to stick a year from
Right.
now. I've told him that when we first started, I'm looking a year out, a year out, a year out.
Yes.
And to I kind of described the timeline to him and he hit every milestone exactly as it was laid out, which again is like, I told him, I was like, you do realize like you're in the 1%, man. Like,
Right.
my hat's off to you because I can tell people this till I'm blue in the face, but to actually execute it at that level is so freaking difficult. And he's gone from an individual that had multiple medications as part of his, regimen to eliminating all blood pressure medications simply by
Wow.
getting
That's
fitness
super cool.
involved, having someone to talk to on a regular basis. And, hell, I even get to, like, he lives close enough to me that, like, certain times, like, I don't really do a lot of in-person stuff. I go to him, I say, hey, we're going to work on some shoulder stuff. I'm going to show you a few things to utilize in your pieces of equipment. And it's, again, like, kind of my way of, like, uniquely giving back to a
Right.
veteran, plus, like, our service I actually offer too.
That is really cool. Well, hey, maybe we should bring the program to Nevada.
Hey, I mean, if you have opportunities, I'm willing. I love, I can give you Nick's number as well, since he's already doing a lot of things with wounded veterans already. I'm sure if there's more opportunity to help more people and reach people from a level of health and wellness and fitness, he would be a great person since he's been doing it for basically a decade with his nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I love it. Well, more opportunities. Leigh-Ann, it's been about an hour. I feel like
Yeah.
we've covered so much. I want to just give you this time, just like any last parting thoughts or kind of anything on the docket for you. This episode comes out in the next 4 weeks. Where can people find you? Any last thoughts for us here?
Yeah. I think the best place to find me is probably LinkedIn. I try to do consistent posts there to elevate the profession of health and wellness coaching and just to talk about what it is that health and wellness coaches do. I feel like I'm in a kind of a cool position now because, well, I can say whatever I want to say, right? So I'm
without the
independent,
the
which
board
is
going like, hey, did you say that?
super nice. But I'm always incredibly respectful. And so I'd say, yeah, so that's the best place to like get in touch with me. And then in terms of what I'm doing now, I'm doing contract work. And then I have 52 healthy weeks. I really like to inspire people to get out there and do hard things that they've been thinking about, like in particular, long endurance type hikes. We had the opportunity to do the John Muir Trail last summer. It was my husband and I, and then my son Caden, and then his two friends. So that was really neat. And I hope you don't hear my dog barking.
Don't worry about it.
She was patient for an hour. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing with 52 Healthy Weeks. And then I'm also going to launch Health Coach Industry News, which is a way to tell the stories out there about what's happening in the industry.
I love it. Well, Marcos and I appreciate you. March step out for a second, but for the macro perspective, peeps, Leigh-Ann is a plethora of health and wellness. She lives and breathes it. She's helping it out. I'm here to support it. That's why we do this podcast, just to kind of shine a light on these things. But there's so much here from this conversation. I think we can't even grasp the scope of the work that she's put in and the amount of work she's about to put through. So please support her. I know I will, and we'll make it happen. All right, team. We'll see you guys. Give us a like, give us a share, especially this episode, especially for veterans. Make sure they get this one.